be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game and a stretch of hockey that's starting to remind me not of a post-game show, but of those post-apocalyptic movies. And why do I say that? Well, let's hop into the Toyota. It's going to be a Tundra today. It's the dream vehicle. Hop into the Toyota Tundra. Go for a little spin here as we talk all about how the Winnipeg Jets season is shaping up like one of those post-apocalyptic movies. Because if you think about the Winnipeg Jets and where they were last year, everything is going good. Society, everything's running good in society. And then out of nowhere, a nuclear bomb is dropped. And now it's how do you survive, right? That's what happened to the Winnipeg Jets. That's the only explanation for what happened to the Winnipeg Jets, to go from the top of the penthouse and all of a sudden nuclear bomb dropped and they find themselves at some point in the season last place in the NHL, trying to survive it. Of course, here as we were on the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. The Winnipeg Jets are trying to survive the unsurvivable, okay? Shouldn't be a conversation. Shouldn't be a possibility that they can get back into the playoffs. But they just keep going. They're not listening to themselves. And, like those characters that you see in those post-apocalyptic shows. Hey, there's a really good one called The Road. It's a book by Cormac McCarthy. And in that one, his wife just packs it in and says, I'm done. That's those teams that are like, we're done. We're out of the playoffs. And then the other, Viggo Mortensen's character and his son, they keep going. They keep pushing. They keep trying to survive. That's what those shows are all about. They're about resilience. They're about surviving. And the Winnipeg Jets are those people in the post-apocalyptic movies that just keep pushing against all odds. Just try and stay alive and see what happens the next day. And try and stay alive and see what happens the next day. And they're doing it in some pretty unorthodox ways, as you saw me write in the captions. But let's do this. Do you watch UFC? If you don't, too bad, because that's the analogy I'm going to use. But this reminds me of a UFC fight, 3 rounds, where the Winnipeg Jets stepped out into the ring and they absolutely clocked their opposition with a couple punches early. That's all they did. They stood back and then they just threw 1 or 2 punches and boom, absolutely clocked their opposition, left them reeling, and then decided to roll up and turtle for the next 40 minutes of that fight, for the next half of the first round, half of the second round, or all of the second round, and half of the third round. As the Winnipeg Jets, I think it was at some point they went 15 minutes without a shot in the second period. This is what I'd said. I talked about this. I was on with Jamie and Sarah before the show. I told you how the game would go. Low event, low shot totals. The Winnipeg Jets, if they get the lead, then they are just trying to win with those goals. So if they get those 2 goals early, that's what they're trying to do for the entirety of the game. They roll up into a ball. They roll up, they turtle, and then try and survive the blows being rained down on them. Worked against the Colorado Avalanche. Worked for the most part tonight. And then every once in a while, they've got that capability to just stand up and deliver another shot that rocks them. That's the Kyle Connor goal in the third period. All of a sudden, it's 3-1. Then they revert back down into the ball. I don't know. The fetal position, whatever you want to call it. They take some more blows and it goes right down to the end and they survive and they stand up. And those couple times that they rock the opposition, that's enough to win it on the scorecard. And your Winnipeg Jets make it through. Okay. Now, it's not quite as simple as I make it sound, although it's a little bit, it's pretty much like that. If you go and you take a look at the stats of this game, if you see the flow charts of this game, it just trends nonstop towards the St. Louis Blues. If you take a look at the high danger chances and all those kind of things, it's very heavily in the favor of the St. Louis Blues. 11 high danger chances, 4 for the St. Louis Blues, 4 for the Winnipeg Jets. They score on 3 of them. How do you like that? Couple things that allow the Winnipeg Jets to survive games like this, survive the last game that they had. You see that they're getting goals with not a lot of shot attempts. Typically, to start games, they've done a pretty good job with starts. So give them credit for their starts. This to me goes back to something that has been in this team's DNA for a lot of years, back to the Snake Charmer years. This is a remnant, I feel, of the Paul Maurice era, a team that really just can sit there and get caved in and caved in and caved in and then pop up and boom, go the other way and it's in the back of the net. You saw it with Mark Scheifele. You saw it with Kyle Connor. They just need a little bit of a sliver. You can be getting dominated for 10 minutes of play and they'll jump out and head in the other direction, put the puck in the back of the net. The Winnipeg Jets have always had that capability. But the other thing that stands out for me is, listen, it's hard not to get knocked out when you lie down and you turtle in a fight. You're going to take some blows, and usually those blows are going to end up landing. And one of those blows ends up landing for the St. Louis Blues at some point. But why are the Winnipeg Jets sitting on their heels and surviving it? That becomes the question, because they did it last game. They did it this game. They've done it in a lot of these games. And my answer to that is something I'd said to Ken, and it stood out to me a little while ago when Dean Chenault came out and spoke to us. Ken, could you just pull that one off the screen rather than leave it up the entire time? He had talked about the way that the Winnipeg Jets, now not an overly large group after losing the likes of Luke Schenn and Logan Stanley. How do you defend when you're not really, really big, when you're not able to push people around? How do you defend? And his answer was, it's in the sticks, right? How you defend with your sticks. And if you go back and watch this game, if you watch the previous game, in fact, if you watch the last 4 games, the Winnipeg Jets are a masterclass in shutting down lanes, in taking away space, in just basically disrupting their opposition with their sticks. Now, if you notice, there's a whole bunch of times the St. Louis Blues come close, but that's as good as it gets. It comes close. Same thing happened with the Colorado Avalanche. There's just never a perfectly clean passing lane because the Winnipeg Jets are so good, so engaged with their sticks that they're shutting down those lanes. But it's not just that. Next time, I'm telling you, as long as the Winnipeg Jets can't keep playing like this, or if you were at the game, imagine this and think on this. That game sounded a certain way when the puck was in the Jets zone versus when the puck was in the St. Louis Blues zone. In the St. Louis Blues zone and the Winnipeg Jets have the puck, you're just kind of you're hearing normal stuff. Pass, stick hits the tape, pass, stick hits the tape. You're hearing players call for the puck. You're hearing blades, carving on the ice. When the St. Louis Blues are in the Winnipeg Jets zone, it sounds like you're running through a thicket. It is just clack, 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 incessant, nonstop, because the Winnipeg Jets at every point are either tipping the puck slightly or slapping the opposition stick to try and disrupt them, or stick checking them, or lifting the stick, or getting it into that area, just touching the puck, all these kind of things. But the sound of the game is it's a feast for the senses if you like the sound of stick clashing against stick. The Winnipeg Jets are extremely busy. It's what they've done the last number of games to spend so much time in their own zone and yet escape not allowing very much in the way of goals in these games here. That's how they've survived it. So right now, it's a pretty simple plan for the Winnipeg Jets. And I told you this, it's the great equalizer after the last game. It's the great equalizer on a night where the opposition definitely has your number when it comes to possessing the puck, getting shots, getting high danger chances. There's basically not a metric in this game that the St. Louis Blues did not win outside of the scoreboard. And that is how the Winnipeg Jets are doing it, because as they sit back, not trying to score, not trying to shoot for 15 minutes at a time, what they are doing is throwing all of their energy into making sure that their sticks are right. And they're throwing their energy into not making mistakes. This game, if you take a look at the Jets' first goal, there's a St. Louis Blues player right there with Fleury. A little bit of a lazy attempt, gives him enough space. Boom, it's in the back of the net. Bad plays by 2 players when Mark Scheifele just picks up. It shouldn't be that easy in the NHL, but it was. He just basically skates through players, heads down the ice, scores. Kyle Connor gets in behind the defense. That's an easy one. Just 1, 2, 3 mistakes. The Jets are capitalizing on mistakes, and they're not making mistakes on the other end. And that's why you're talking about the Winnipeg Jets winning another game and giving a lot of belief to a fan base who is desperate to feel that belief. That's my take on this whole thing as we wrap up the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. And this March, find your next Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Strong, capable, powerful. The 2026, the aforementioned 2026 Tundra is the perfect blend of rugged and sophisticated, ready to take you on any adventure. This month, finance the 2026 Tundra from 4.79% plus eligible loyalty customers receive a 1% rate reduction. But hurry, the offer ends March 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, that's enough time, enough blathering out of me. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny, folks. You're surviving. You look like you're thriving in that suit there. And of course you are, because it's one of those Vittorio Rossi specials. If you want to look like if the apocalypse is happening, the way things are going in this world these days, it sure feels like we're on the cusp of it. But if you want to not just survive, but thrive, head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. You walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you upright. Ken, in your mind, how did the Winnipeg Jets survive that one?
Yes, first of all, as I told you yesterday, the Renny special right here, making out the attire, filling out the attire.
You go. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, when the coach is outwardly saying, it doesn't matter if it looks good or if it isn't pretty, just had to get the job done. I mean, I think that this was a Jets team getting the job done. I think in some ways the Blues got hellebucked, even though Hellebuck wasn't between the pipes. It was the understudy taking care of business between the pipes, and Eric Comrie winning his 5th consecutive game and looking sharp doing so. But yeah, I mean, they rode the formula that we talked extensively about yesterday, Sean. So, score early, add on, and then kind of hang on. So, I mean, both teams, we know this is one of those scheduled games where we knew that both teams were probably not going to be at their finest. Although the Blues were in here resting last night, they also played 3 games in 4 days, Sean. So it was 2 teams playing 3 and 4. And in a month where both teams, I think, are playing 16 games, you sort of saw it was not a wide open, chance-filled affair. Once again, it's interesting, Sean. I mean, we talked about natural stat trick both days, tilted heavily towards the opponent. But in both of those days, both goalies kind of raved about how the shots were kept to the outside. So it's kind of another one of those games where, I mean, are the numbers deceiving, or are the goalies just pumping the tires of their teammates, for the sake of doing so? But in terms of, I don't think this was a template game again either, but parts of the template are there. There's battle. There's the willingness to sacrifice again. You got a bunch of different players stepping up when they needed to. Morgan Barron, 2 assists to give him career best in points for his career, getting to 22. He continues to play well, as pointed out there, and we've talked about it a ton. He's getting extra defensive zone draw situations, Sean, with the top line of late. It is a nice color. You're right. You're right.
You know where I got it, Ken?
Yeah, Vittorio Rossi.
Vittorio Rossi.
That's why.
Just so you people know. Vittorio Rossi, they did this.
You can find the nice colors. Yes.
This compliment is not for me. It's for the boy, Frankie and the boys. That's who it's for. Anyways, Ken.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, anytime someone who scores for the first time in 81 games, it's going to give a team a lift. And this is not a knock on Hayden Fleury, but Hayden Fleury's gone through some really difficult challenges on the injury side of things since he scored in December of 2023, Sean. I mean, then he was playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning, scoring against the St. Louis Blues also. But Hayden Fleury has come out of the press box, gotten healthy, and after injuries to Neil Pionk and Colin Miller and trades of Luke Shen and Logan Stanley, he's been asked to be a regular. We understand that some of the Free Villy crowd don't agree with him being in the lineup, but in the last couple games, he's blocked a couple of important shots. He's used his feet to get up ice. He's had a couple of important zone exits. He's found a way to score a goal by joining the rush and joining at a smart time, Sean, right? So this is something that in the press box, it's way easier than on the ice. You see the Jets are getting an odd man rush, and all of a sudden Hayden Fleury turns a 3-on-2 into a 4-on-2, and the sort outs are not there. Fleury gets up ice. Barron gets it to Lambert. Lambert leaves it for Fleury. Fleury beats Jordan Binnington, and it's in the back of the net. So, I mean, we know there's lots of debate on who should be on what pairing, and well, why is this guy playing over another guy? One guy has 1 year left on his deal. The other guy is going to be gone. Debate whatever you want. I mean, Hayden Fleury's in because Scott O'Neill, A, values his experience, and B, values the size that he brings to the table on a defense core that is undersized currently. So it's probably not going to change. So that doesn't mean people shouldn't complain about it if they want to. But, once in a while, Hayden Fleury is able to get a reward for, going through what is the equivalent. You talked about the apocalypse. Hayden Fleury's gone through hell in the a couple times in the last 3 seasons here. So is it always pretty? No, but this is also a guy who came out and played 33 minutes in Game 7 last year, played one of his best games as a member of the Jets. So anyways, it just good on Hayden Fleury for being able to raise his level in this game where, it hasn't been an easy season for him. That's only his 25th game of the year. So, and then other than that, Sean, I mean, for Brad Lambert, it's a point for him. We've talked a lot about, it hasn't been going overly smoothly for him, I don't think, in his recall since the trade deadline. But, for an offensive guy, getting a good feeling of chipping in a primary assist, that's got to make him feel better. I mean, yes, we know the Jets went down to 3 lines, and Lambert didn't have a ton of ice time. Again, Lambert is at 10 shifts for 908, but he's on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal. He gets an assist. That's a small building block for him. So overall, I mean, again, it's not a Picasso by any stretch. We wake up right now and all of a sudden the Jets are 4 out, and it's impressive for them to be able to stay in the race, Sean. It sort of reinforces what we talked about. The laying of the egg against Anaheim and not delivering much of not their best effort against the Rangers is still costly, because even if they get one of those, now it's a 2-point game and we're having a different conversation probably. But on the out of time scoreboard quickly, I know we don't want to overdo it with this, but
4-4, isn't it?
San Jose just tied it up at 4-4 with Ottawa here. 7-ish minutes left in the third period here.
Yes. Just to reiterate, I don't agree with Kenny on the lack of effort on those 2 games. I don't see what everyone else is saying.
I didn't say the second game. The Anaheim game was effort related. I didn't think it was effort related.
The Anaheim game was that they got run around.
It was a poor effort, Sean.
Right?
It was a poor effort.
And why?
I'm not saying they weren't trying, but it was a poor effort. For all the things that Scott O'Neill told you again when we referenced it in the post game, Sean. Anaheim skated them into the ground. That's to their credit.
So did Colorado.
They didn't answer.
So did Colorado. So for the most part, did the Blues tonight. It's the same thing over and over again. We're assigning value to nothing but the scoreboard when we say that. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all.
You don't have to.
All these games are the same. Anyways, we're gonna move to what I think is the flame and comfort hot take of the game here, and it is this one where Tracy O says, I don't think it's the Jets not trying to score. It's more they're trying to limit their own mistakes. They kept the Blues to the outside for a lot of it. This is 4,000% true. And there was a moment in the game where it was like, and you know me, I've said it out loud. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of hockey where a team takes the lead and then goes 15 minutes without a shot or looking like they're trying to. But Tracy's right here. It's not that they're not trying to score. It is entirely that they're trying to limit their own mistakes. Because if you think of this, when the Winnipeg Jets had a little bit of a time there in the third period where they did open up. And what happened? Well, the Blues come down and get a no-doubter goal that Eric Comrie has absolutely no chance on. And then right after that, it's the Jordan Kyrou breakaway that is a massive breakdown by Isaac Rosean, that's his man. He lets him go. He gets wide open. But you could see in that moment what happens with this team when they open up a little bit. So what it has to be, just like Tracy O is saying here, the Winnipeg Jets have to throw that level of defending in if they want to defend. Otherwise, it's going to become a track meet. And so when they get up 2 goals, the last thing they want is a track meet, because maybe they'll win it, but there's probably a good chance that they won't. And you could just see that game was near perfection. It was near perfection defensively, shutting things down, not allowing things in. And then the Winnipeg Jets decided to open things up a little bit, and it was just getting crammed down their throat instantaneously. So Tracy nails it here. It's more they're trying to limit their own mistakes. They kept the Blues to the outside for a lot of it. The time that they didn't was when they opened up a little bit. And so you can see why the Winnipeg Jets are playing a no-event game. They're trying to get that goal. They don't trust themselves to go out and beat a team by competing with them to try and score on the scoreboard. So it's get 1, get 2, whatever, but shut things down, because going into that defensive shell is how they have survived to the degree that they've survived. So absolutely nails it. There does Tracy O, who earns herself the hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. When you get down there, you are going to see it as one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. Visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of it for you. Okay, on to Eric Comrie and the game that he's had. Now, Ken, you had said that the St. Louis Blues were Connor Hellebucked. I had thought that was borderline insulting for a goaltender who's won 5 straight wins. I don't think we should be in a position to talk about Eric Comrie and say that his performance is anything other than Eric Comrie-esque, because his performance for a long time now has been speaking for itself on the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from Eric Comrie, Sean.
No, look, I will defend him.
If you are going to
besmirch his honor, I am here to defend him.
Please do. Yes, I've been. It's the term that other teams who come into Winnipeg and are unfamiliar with Eric Comrie use. That's why I used it, whether you like it or not.
I definitely don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Perfect.
Anyways,
so remind me the last time Eric Comrie won the Hart Trophy and 3 Vezinas, please.
Wow, you're doubling down right now. Here's a guy who's won 5 straight games.
The guy who just won 5,
where Connor Hellebuck was still struggling. And here, I want to bring something up here as well. In a year, I mean, I was going to go somewhere with this, but you're forcing me to go there now. But it doesn't sound insane, like crazy numbers. But Eric Comrie is a backup goaltender on a team that I believe they hit 500 tonight. He's over 500 for the Winnipeg Jets, and he carried the team for a stretch of time. They were playing their worst hockey of the year. I would suggest that the performance this season by Eric Comrie, who's got 11 wins and 9 losses and 1 overtime loss in his games this year, has been everything that the Jets, a team in the position they are, in the position they're in the standings, could have ever hoped for from a backup goaltender.
Well, Eric Comrie is having a solid season, Sean, but I mean, it hasn't been as solid as last year. Obviously, the teams are different. Eric has done an exceptional job of bouncing back after a tough go. The tough go being the date that he referenced today in Toronto, where he gave up 6 against the Leafs, including a third period collapse that they had, where Eric Comrie was as dejected as I have ever seen him since he entered the NHL. His ability to rattle off 5 consecutive victories since then. And Sean, the fact that he's done it January 9th, January 20th, January 31st, February 25th, March 15th. We know there's a 3-week break in there for the Olympics, but spreading out those 5 starts over 2 months and a week almost, and then to rattle off 5 victories in a row with 7 goals allowed during that span is phenomenal. phenomenal. Eric Comrie deserves incredible credit for doing that. Now, again, as usual, he gave his goalie coach incredible credit, which he always does. Wade Flaherty, the work that they've done together. And he had an important reveal, Sean, or important to him. He put white bars on his goalie mask after that game on July 1st because he was talking about it with Wade Flaherty and said, we got to change something. And because you don't want to change your routine, he changed the equipment. And since putting the white bars on the mask, I think instead of the silver ones that he had previously, he's been able to rattle off 5 in a row. So again, I know you're just joking, but let's not misconstrue this here. The guy doing the talking after the game was the guy saying that Connor Hellebuyck's the greatest goalie of all time. That's why I used the term Hellebuyck. But Comrie's done an exceptional job. You and I know this, even though Eric was joking that he doesn't see us at those practices. We have seen him plenty showing up half an hour before practice when he is out on the ice with Wade Flaherty. But again, I like the shots Eric Comrie was taking at the folks in the media for occasionally sleeping in and not being there for the start of practice. But
it was his only fumble on the day, was attacking the media in the Saturday that he did in that press conference. Uncalled for, Eric. Entirely uncalled for. I think so. This is going to be interesting because when Connor Hellebuyck was out for a stretch of time and the Winnipeg Jets were struggling, people were wondering, okay, things were fairly new. And I'd said it on the podcast. The Jets had started their struggles long before Connor Hellebuyck went out. But when he did go out, there was a lot of people who just wanted to believe everything was okay with the Winnipeg Jets, except for one thing. Eric Comrie. Without Connor Hellebuyck being there, they weren't the same team, and they didn't have the confidence behind that goaltender, all that kind of stuff. And people wanted to pin it on Eric Comrie. I think because Connor Hellebuyck came back afterwards and lost 11 straight games at some point and had a real tough stretch of hockey where he wasn't able to win a lot of games. That was what it finally took for some people to understand, okay, there's something different going on with this team. It's not the same. And maybe some of those people were big enough to look in the mirror and say, all the pinning of this that I put at the feet of Eric Comrie, I was wrong about that. Hopefully they can see that. What I want to say out of this is, in a year where we consider this, to your point, this is a tough year for Eric Comrie. It is a tough year because he does not have the numbers that he had last year. And yet Eric Comrie right now has more wins than losses. And that includes, if you include the overtime losses or the shootout losses, he's got 11 wins on the year, 9 losses, and 1 shootout loss or overtime loss or whatever he has. If you compare that to where Connor Hellebuyck is, Connor Hellebuyck has 1 less win than he has losses, but he also has 9 overtime losses. So you're talking about a guy right now who has 10 more losses this season than he has wins. That should put into perspective what a good job the Winnipeg Jets have got from their backup goaltender. It should also suggest to you, or to anyone out there who's thinking about this, if you expect your backup goaltender to have worse numbers than your starting goaltender, then there should be no chance at all for the Winnipeg Jets right now. If Eric Comrie was getting the same results that Connor Hellebuyck was getting, and I'm not saying that he should be, and I'm not discounting the fact that Connor Hellebuyck plays more and all this kind of stuff. You don't try get lost what I'm saying, but the fact of the matter is you're supposed to get better results from your starting goaltender than you get from your backup goaltender. If the Winnipeg Jets were getting the results from their backup goaltender that they've been getting from Connor Hellebuyck and from the team this season in general, they would be nowhere near. They would be about 6, 7, 8 points further back of where they are right now. So Eric Comrie deserves the credit that that should be given to him for keeping the Winnipeg Jets in the race right now, the way that they have remained in the race. And it leads to me to say, Ken, I personally think, given what he's done here this year, given the way he steadied things at the time where the Jets needed it most, the 5 straight wins. This has been a crucial time. There was a stretch there where Connor Hellebuyck hadn't won games, and the only games that the Winnipeg Jets were winning were the games where they put Eric Comrie in. It's undeniable, and on a night like tonight, that the Winnipeg Jets win this game the way they do because of the performance of that player. I'm going to say it right now. To me, this is a no-brainer for the Winnipeg Jets to bring back Eric Comrie. He's the perfect backup goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. Why? The team loves him. 2, he's always ready to go when it's time. 3, his numbers belie what has been happening to the team this year, even though, as you pointed out, his numbers aren't what they were last year. But 4, he knows his place. He supports Connor Hellebuyck the best that he could possibly do it. 5, he's great in the city of Winnipeg. This player is the perfect backup goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets in going into an offseason where they're going to need to figure some things out personnel-wise. This is something they don't need to figure out. Eric Comrie is a no-brainer to stay with the Winnipeg Jets and to stay with them for a while.
Yeah, right on. We're going to agree with that wholeheartedly. And again, just quickly on the context on the Comrie numbers stuff. Got his goals against down to 296. And Sean, the difference between Comrie's numbers as a regular backup compared to the stretch where he started, I think 12 of 13 games when Milic got the one in Carolina, those numbers are incredibly skewed by 15 goals allowed in 3 games as a starter. The games that he's actually been the backup, which is his primary job, Comrie's numbers have been just as good as they were last year. So anyways, and that's important for him. And that will be kept under consideration in the negotiation. And again, Thomas Milic and Dom DiVincentis are having pretty strong years. And Milic, I think, had 40, let me double check here, Sean, today in their victory, 43 saves for Milic. But again, I think that Comrie on a 1-year deal is a smart move for both sides. Agreed. It allows one more year for those guys to develop with the Moose. And it also, as you mentioned very eloquently, it allows Connor Hellebuyck to feel comfortable. We know the importance of comfort. Connor Hellebuyck has played great when he's had Laurent Brossoit or Eric Comrie as his backup. There were times with Riddick, he obviously played great also, but having that as a something you don't have to worry about is massively important. And I agree with you, Sean, wholeheartedly. One of the reasons why the Jets kept a couple of those pending UFAs around after the deadline is because they probably want to sign Eric Comrie. They probably want to extend Cole Koepke and then see what happens from there.
Cole Koepke, they definitely should. But just back to Eric Comrie, in my mind, it's undisputable the growth that this team has seen past the halfway point of the season. I give him a lot of credit for. He's been there when they've needed him to. He's been a steadying force when Connor Hellebuyck was trying to get his game back underneath him. It's one of the biggest reasons the Winnipeg Jets are growing and where they're at this point right now. You too can shoot for growth with Cambrian Wealth. Grow your wealth today to reach tomorrow's big goals. Cambrian's wealth team can assist. Invest in your future self your way. Our pals at Cambrian Wealth give straight up investing advice you can actually understand and help you make a strong financial play to get there. You need to go and book an appointment at cambrian.mb.ca, or folks, you can
hang
just
on a second. Here we
help
go. Here we
yourself
go.
a little
Here
bit
we
here
go.
and throw
Here
up the
we go.
QR code, and that'll take you to the Kenny and Renny page at Cambrian Credit Union, and that'll explain everything you need to know once you get there, folks. Check it out. Okay, Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're at it as well?
Right on. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Hey, listen, Nelson Gaspar says the hashtag the keg save of the game. Dark horse entry. Com's calling out Renny in post-game interview for being late to practice. He said the media in general. I don't know. I don't even know if he was looking at me. I think he must have been looking at someone past me, but I don't like the idea that this is getting tagged to Renny and Renny's performance. The reason I'm on this side of the glass is because I don't like to have my performance dug into. Let's just keep it with the players, okay? That's what we'll do, all right, Nelson?
Eric Comrie, pristine rookie wake-up call to members of the media.
There you go. Good enough. It was pretty funny.
It's not at you.
You know what I mean, though. Pristine Roofing wake up call goes to the media in general, who are now expected to be there a half hour before practice, so we can see what Eric Comrie is up to on the ice with Wade Flaherty. North and Rick's the guy, though, you want to give the Pristine Roofing wake up call to. He's the guy who knows everything you need to know about your roofing, siding, and exteriors. You can give him a call at 204-981-6289. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Okay, I wanted to talk just quickly. I know we've touched on it before on the show, but Wade Flaherty. I agree with Eric Comrie 100%. I think it would, if you take it's a results based business, and if you take a look at what has happened to the likes of David Riddick when he came here, Lauren Brossoit, Eric Comrie, when we've seen what's happened with those players when they've left the market, when you see what's happened with Connor Hellebuck, who showed up to this market, a gleaming prospect who just grew and grew and grew into the behemoth that he has become in the game. You would be ridiculous if you were not giving credit to Wade Flaherty as having a huge thing to do with that. One of the things that I've kind of thought, that I got thinking about this after Eric Comrie said that, Ken, is this is one of the things that like organizationally makes players good, right? Like the Winnipeg Jets got this right, and they got it right a long time ago. They grabbed the guy who had ties to the organization. I still remember going and seeing Wade Flaherty play with the Manitoba Moose back in the day. He's been around for a long time, been a Winnipegger for a long time, and he's one of these quiet things that the Winnipeg Jets have working for them that the rest of the league probably doesn't have a real good understanding of why the Winnipeg Jets are great. Maybe they do. Maybe in goaltending circles, it's like, do you remember when Eric Comrie talked about the video guy in Buffalo? And he was like, Matty Prefontaine, and Matty Prefontaine's like the Wayne Gretzky of video guys. So there's another example of one of these kind of behind the scenes guys that no one would really see, but the Winnipeg Jets have put into place, and they make the organization better. Wade Flaherty clearly makes the organization better, and it's one of the things I just thought deserved a shout out, not just for Wade Flaherty to put him in front of the spotlight and say this guy is one of the reasons this team has had goaltending be such a strength of it for such a long time, but the organization in general in finding good people and putting them in the right spot. And it's one of the things that actually fascinates me, Ken, when you take a look at these giant teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs and teams like this. This is the thing that I've never understood. These are the decisions that could be made over and over again, where you just find the very best people and it doesn't hurt you in your salary cap. Like you can just be the best organization, have the best support systems, the best way to develop things. And to me, it's almost inexcusable that a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs just wouldn't hit in so many crazy, unexpected ways, because with all the money that they have, they can easily hire the right people in the right places and hold on to those people the way the Winnipeg Jets have held on to Wade Flaherty for as long as they have. It's one of the things I've found crazy in the salary cap world, that there's not more activity, and you don't hear a lot of stories about very specific teams that have money, that have everything figured out behind the scenes because they've got the money to do so, and they can get the people they want in the right place. I'm not sure that Wade Flaherty would ever leave, but if I was a guy running a team with the purse strings like the Toronto Maple Leafs, I would be calling a guy like Wade Flaherty and saying, what does it take to get you to come here? Because that's one thing we have plenty of, is money. And if we can get you here and you can have the effect that you've had on the Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending situation that the Winnipeg Jets have had, just name your price. Here's a blank check, write it in, and we'll see you in Toronto, kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, Wade is a great person, and the bonus for me as it relates to him, I covered him when he was a member of the Milwaukee Admirals, and I covered him when he rolled into town as a member of the Manitoba Moose, fresh off helping the Milwaukee Admirals win the Calder Cup in 2003-2004. And Wade came to Manitoba, played 36 games, had a .233 goals against average and a .918 save percentage. And his most important job, aside from winning and developing, was helping a young goalie named Alex Auld get to the NHL and help him along his way. So again, one of the things we often hear, the narratives that are, put forth on social media and stuff, is that True North is, they just hire people they know. Well, in this case, Wade Flaherty is someone they know, and they know the value of Wade Flaherty because he did it as a mentor and he's done it as a goalie coach. Wade values personal relationships with his goaltenders, and he's always been that way, whether he's been the bona fide number one or a guy who's been asked to come over and be the backup when there's this hot prospect like Brian Finley in Nashville, or Alex Auld, the high prospect. So Wade always knew the value when he was playing, and that's one of the things that he's done an exceptional job on in this relationship with the Winnipeg Jets since arriving on the scene in 2011 for that first year. And Sean, we've talked about this a ton also. He's helped players get back on track. David Riddick was basically on the way out of the league when he came to Winnipeg, and he's still playing. So that's partly due to Wade Flaherty's influence. And the ability, again, and Eric Comrie said this, he bounced around those years when he was waiver claims and trades and all those things were happening. Arizona, Buffalo, all over the place, Detroit briefly, back here. Here they have both goalies doing video together, and it's helped both goalies. Eric Comrie has talked about this a ton, to me and to you and to whoever else have asked him. Eric Comrie being, or not just working with Connor Hellebuck in the summertime with their goalie, folks, but Eric Comrie being in that video room, watching how he processes the game has helped Eric Comrie become a better goalie. And Wade Flaherty, as you mentioned, deserves a lot of credit for his ability to, have an impact on this organization.
You know what, Ken? There's a really great story in there going back to all the different goaltenders that he's affected over the years and just doing like a big fat profile on like what he did, because it would show you the depth of his ability to reach different goaltenders. All these different goaltenders that you're talking about going back to Alex Auld are like, different skill sets, things that make them good. And that would be one of the things that makes Flat so good at what he does, is kind of like, if you take a look at on the surface of it, Connor Hellebuck is an extremely different goaltender than Eric Comrie, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to kind of find in each goaltender what works for them. The other thing I think is very interesting about him is just his approach and the kind of fun that he has with it. Like, I think it's hard for things to get heavy for Winnipeg Jets goaltenders when Flats is their coach, right? And you could just see where Comrie was having the conversation with Flats about like something's got to change, and Flats is like, well, yeah, I agree with you. Like it would be funny in that moment. Like you just had this bomb of a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, things aren't going good, and you're like, man, oh man, something's got to change, and you're thinking a coach is going to be there, like, oh no, it's not as bad as you think, blah blah blah, and the coach comes to you and he's like, for sure, something better change. Hey, how about you change the mask? Why don't you change the mask on your thing? We got to change something up here, and then it turns around and it works. I more feel that coach is in the boat with me, rowing, right? Like you want to feel that you're in the same boat, and I more feel like that coach is with me if I'm like, man, this thing sprung a leak, and the coach isn't like, oh no, the leak's not that bad, blah blah. If the coach is like, it's pretty bad, we should do something about this, like I feel like he's with me, right? Like, and there's no panic in that response by Wade Flaherty. There's just an acknowledgement that, yep, let's change something up and see if we can get this going in a different direction. I love that Eric Comrie's mind, when things have turned and he's won 5 straight, goes to a moment with him and his goalie coach. I think it says a lot about that relationship that is happening in behind the scenes. Anyways, I think we've given you a pretty good all-around view of not just the goaltending in the organization, but right up to the coaching and everything that makes the Winnipeg Jets great. A great goaltending team, just like Myers will cover you all around the city of Winnipeg, because they deliver all over the city of Winnipeg. So if you have any pharmaceutical needs, any health food needs, or any supplemental needs, give them a call. They will come to you. Okay, Ken, let's go. I don't know. Let's go back to this
quickly. 7-4 Ottawa was the final, so the Jets will remain 4 behind for the current. I think there's one more game tonight involving either Seattle or both Seattle and LA, I think, are playing. still.
Yeah, and look at Ottawa go.
Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, the difference between but if the Kraken win, they would be 5 up on the Jets, and
Right.
even games. San Jose, they're 4 back. They're 4 back of San Jose. San Jose still has a game in hand. If LA wins this game, the Jets will have a game in hand on them. So things are getting tight there, no doubt about it. Back to the top line and just the performance. I mean, you get sorry, no. Let's go to Morgan Barron. Let's go and give
Sure.
Morgan Barron his due with a 2-assist night, and just what he's been proving lately.
No, just awesome play. I mean, this is the outstanding stretch for Barron. 18 shifts for 16, just under 16 minutes, 2 missed shots, 2 block shots, 2 helpers. Being asked to be out in important draws with the top line recently here, both the last 2 games, just under 50%. But I love the way that he's playing. He's battling, big block shot early in the game. I can't say this enough. I mean, this is a player that the Jets need to sign him immediately, Sean. And it doesn't have to be today, but don't let this stretch on. This is a summer. This is we talked about the importance of second line center and all these other things for the Jets. Getting Morgan Barron to sign an extension is a top priority for the Jets, and people can say whatever they want. Oh, he's just on the fourth line. This is not a fourth line player. His value to the Jets is at more than a fourth line player. This is a guy who enjoys the community. He can play anything you want him to play. He can play on the wing. He can play at center. He's one of the first penalty killers over the boards. He has a skill set and a body type that is not prevalent in the organization. Again, I'm not saying this is blank check territory, but getting Morgan Barron signed to an extension is a priority for the Winnipeg Jets and Kevin Cheveldayoff. And he's, like I've said this for weeks now, he is deserving of more opportunity and responsibility. And I think that, whether it's down the stretch here in these last 17 games or next year, I think more responsibility is coming for Morgan Barron, and it's deserved opportunity.
Okay. There has to be more opportunity coming from Morgan Barron. And here's why, Ken, because if you as an organization want to stand for something, if you've got a credo, you know what I mean? You put words up on the wall, and these are the words we follow by. One of the things that we've talked about, and I think that we've felt like this, and I think it's the right way to handle things, but Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about it at some point. When we talked and everyone talked about the Jets, just bring up the young guys, bring in the young guys, bench all the old guys, bring in the young guys, and let's just go young, right? The issue that we had with that so often was the Winnipeg Jets youth and a lot of their prospects had not earned the call up, right? It's one thing to have, everyone assumes that there's just a farm team full of players that are just kicking butt and taking names and champing it at the bit to get their opportunity in the big leagues. And there are some teams that have that happening. There's some teams that have some of those players. There's some teams that don't have much going on there. But the Winnipeg Jets, for the most part, the guys that you would expect who are going down and being like, I'll show you what I can do, have not been doing that. And because of that, they didn't get called up this year, and rightfully so. Now, listen, would it have maybe solved the problem for the Winnipeg Jets? I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely based on what we've seen so far. Lambert does get an assist on this night here, but I didn't see, if you're taking a look at the games that he's been up, it's not like he's walked up and been like, this guy fundamentally changes who the Winnipeg Jets are, right? So if you are going to be, though, that team that says we're not bringing these guys up because they didn't earn it, well, then what you have to do is when guys do go out and earn it, you have to give them opportunities above and beyond what you've given them because they've earned it. Morgan Barron hasn't just been earning it this year. He earned it last year towards the end of the year. He was one of the Jets' best players heading into the playoffs. And here's the deal. What I would think the Winnipeg Jets need to do at this moment in time is point to Morgan Barron and go down to the farm system and say, listen, you want it, you do what this guy did. Morgan Barron doesn't get a ton of time. He doesn't get a ton of opportunity. He doesn't get surrounded with the most skilled players. He just gets told, go out. Here's your tiny little window. What can you cram through that window? And he kicked out that window, smashed glass everywhere, and has been throwing stuff through that window ever since. The window hasn't been growing much. His opportunity hasn't become much greater. And he didn't get frustrated. He didn't pout and say, well, I think I earned my way up to the third line or the second line, or I should be given more opportunity, or this should happen. Morgan Barron just quietly takes the opportunities that he's given and he knocks them out of the park over and over and over again. The Winnipeg Jets as an organization need to be able to go to their players. They need to be going to Brad Lambert. They need to be going to some of their younger players, the Isak Rose, and they need to be going to the likes of Yager and say, this is what it looks like. You want to go to the NHL. It doesn't look like you automatically get a call up. It doesn't look like, you were our first round pick from a couple of years ago. So you're automatically going to get this chance. It looks like this. It looks like you get an opportunity and you slay that opportunity. So for the health of the Winnipeg Jets organization, never mind, Ken, for uncovering the potential of a player who's showing that he has more potential and more to give. The Winnipeg Jets need to set the standard for their organization that when a player does what Morgan Barron does, he climbs the ladder. He gets opportunities. He gets to be one of those guys, because no doubt, I don't know that there's anyone on the Winnipeg Jets who's earned it more this year than Morgan Barron has.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that he's been one of the most consistent players at doing the job that he does. Obviously, we know he's not in the point range of Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor, but in terms of what he brings to the table on a daily basis, Morgan Barron has been just exceptional on that front. And again, you know how I feel about this. I've said this for a long time. Rick Bowness said it, a couple of years ago. He feels Morgan Barron could be a 15 to 20 goal scorer at the NHL level. I feel the exact same way, and not just because Rick feels that way, but I think that with that body type, his ability to go to the willingness to go to the hard areas, his skating, his shot, he can be a guy that the Jets need to score more, Sean. We've been talking about this a lot. And again, I agree with you going back to earlier in the conversation. I didn't really weigh in. I don't think it's a matter of just sitting back because they want to sit back, but minimizing the game management or puck management and all that stuff has been important. For a team that needs to get more 5-on-5 goals, Morgan Barron is a good pathway to more 5-on-5 goals with an increase in ice time.
Just one thing that we should, because there's no doubt that the Jets scouting staff has taken a beating from the fan base so far this year, and for a lot of what has happened, their amateur scouting, but give credit where it's due. Morgan Barron, and people can say what they want about Ville Heinola, was the wasn't he? Ville Heinola was the pick that came back with the.
That's a Trouba deal. Morgan Barron is with the Solomonson is the pick with the Copp trade.
Sorry, Solomonson. So there you go. So take a look at the Andrew Copp trade, which is like a guy that they turned a 5th round pick initially, who they come in, turn into a player, and then turn into Solomonson and Morgan Barron. Morgan Barron's one of the guys they went to go take that trade, and I guarantee you 99% of you in the Winnipeg Jets fan base, when they traded and got Morgan Barron, said, who? And look what he's become. So credit where it's due. The amateur scouts did their job with Elias Solomonson, and they did their job with Morgan Barron. 2 guys. That is an example of great asset management by the GM, great scouting to find the players who've popped. That was people love to point out, and rightfully so. They love to point out the kind of dearth of talent that the Winnipeg Jets have been able to pick up in the draft for a long time. But in that very specific case, they turned one unlikely player that they drafted and turned into an NHLer, and then that turned those 2 players into 2 unlikely players. Didn't they get a first out of that, Ken?
No, it's conditioned because they made the conference final?
Yes, they got a first out of that one. Yeah, I remember, because I do remember that year they were done in the first round against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then Jacob Trouba went and I thought was a bit of a cheap shot, concussed Crosby, and entirely changed that series. They were out in the first round, and no one benefited more from the
Jets
Trouba than the Jets did in that situation, because they went all the way to the conference finals. Anyways, Ken, we should get to the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game.
It was updated to a first, yes, John, and then I think they must. Yeah.
So who did they take?
Oh, I'm gonna have to look.
That's okay.
Chaz. No, it's got to be Chaz, right? It's got to be.
Yeah. Feels like
I'll double
that's
check.
too okay.
Is that too
Anyways,
late?
don't worry about it. We got to go. Okay, I'll start with my Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. Ken, you can
Sure.
look that up.
Yeah.
This is one that you could very well give it to Dylan DeMello, like we joked about on the last show. It's happening all the time. He seals the back door on a Jordan Kyrou wraparound
Yep.
that would have tied the game. It's a really, really great play, or maybe it would have made it 3-2. I can't remember at
No, would
that
have
time.
tied it.
But my
Well,
Johnston Group got you covered play of the game comes in, and it's Morgan Barron, and it's a play that a lot of people wouldn't have noticed. But remember this: the Winnipeg Jets are knotted up in their own zone. The St. Louis Blues are flying. Who is it?
Lambert, 30th overall.
Okay,
It's Lambert.
there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Lambert. Okay. Anyways, the Jets are on their heels. The St. Louis Blues are buzzing. At one point, it's the same play. If you remember this in your head, Eric Comrie loses his stick and it ends up behind the net. So now you have a goaltender who doesn't have his stick, which makes things problematic. It also makes it a lot easier for players to cross to pass the puck across the crease for backdoor tap-ins. The Jets are in trouble. They're on their heels, and the puck goes up the boards, and Morgan Barron makes a strong play where he closes the gap extremely quickly on the St. Louis Blues player who has the puck on the boards. You can see the player's not expecting it, but once he realizes he's there, he thinks that he can hold him off, and he can't because Morgan Barron is too big, too strong, and he chips the puck out. It alleviates the pressure. The Winnipeg Jets are able to change players on the ice, and then that ends up later on that shift with Morgan Barron getting the puck, feeding Kyle Connor, and now it's 3-1. This is very likely, or very possibly anyways, a tied up game if Morgan Barron doesn't act. And Morgan Barron in that one shift alone takes what very well could have been a 2-2 hockey game and twists it entirely in the opposite direction. These are the kind of shifts that break games, and it broke it for the Winnipeg Jets. And that's why, for me, Morgan Barron has the got you covered play of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that had DeMello not won 700 of these awards, we might consider giving it to him on the wraparound.
He could share it for once.
Yep, he's going to have to share the wealth. It's important. Barron,
there you go.
Excellent pass as well. I mean, we talked about Roseanne's pass to Taves the other day. This is just an absolutely crispy 2-zone pass, catching Kyle Connor absolutely in stride. And that's vintage Connor. Like people who just think he shot through the 5-hole, go back and watch the replay.
Yeah.
He absolutely freezes him because of his hands in tight. Bennington thinks he's going to go backhand shelf, and then he opens up just for a split second, and it's in the back of the net.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, if you've got the game recorded, go back and watch right before, rewind to the puck drop right before that goal that he scores, and go watch. Just keep your eyes on Morgan Barron on that shift. It's unbelievable, and a very, very strong candidate, very worthy candidate of the Kenny and Renny OGs. Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, that brings us to our hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, this is an easy one, and it's an easy one because it wasn't an easy save. And I love the honesty from Comrie, Sean. When I asked him about the breakaway, he said, to be honest, I actually wasn't quite ready for the shot. And he's like, man, I'm glad I stopped that with my glove. And again, that's not Comrie taking a shot at himself. It's that he felt he was a little bit flat-footed on the play itself. Kyrou just flies in and made a really good shot, but Comrie just made an exceptional save. And I mean, again, very timely. That ties the game up. No, maybe not. Maybe was it still 2-1 at the time? I think it was. I'd have to double check.
Yeah, no, it happened. It
was
right
still 2-1.
That would have been, and they
had
just scored. It did, like St. Louis had just scored. It would have been a tie game. It would have been one of those, oh man, we had a 2-0 lead that we sat on the entire game, and all of a sudden it's tied up, and now you haven't pushed for offense for the entirety of the game, and you got to figure this out. So that was an absolutely huge moment of the game. No doubt. I mean, it is beyond a shadow of a doubt that Eric Comrie wins the Sean Reynolds Award in this game. He was far and away the better goaltender. To be honest, Jordan Binnington was probably. I know Fleury gets that goal. It's a little bit of a weak goal to be letting in. He didn't have the greatest night, and hey, in a night where one of the stars. Maybe like, I don't know. Would you suggest that Jordan Kyrou, out of all the players outside maybe Robert Thomas, there wouldn't be a better person for the St. Louis Blues to have on the breakaway than Jordan Kyrou in that moment? I think it's almost even. Like, I think Connor's clearly the better scorer, but if you're taking, the top one or two guys on each team that you'd be like, we could really use this guy on, not just a breakaway, this guy on a breakaway. For the Jets, it would be Scheifele and Connor. For the St. Louis Blues, it would be Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. So it's an even
maybe Buchnevich would be the only other guy. Maybe Buchnevich, but he's not having a great year.
You could also go and say Gabe Vilardi, the way Gabe Vilardi is able to score on these things. So it's kind of a wash. One goes down one way and scores, one goes down the other way and doesn't score. So hand it to Eric Comrie. He's had a huge impact in that game. And that's why he's our winner of the hashtag the Keg Save of the Game. It doesn't matter what we think, though. It matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the Keg Save of the Game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our winner from our last show, and that would be Eric Hjorleifson. Eric, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And just wanted to let everybody know, again, a little bit of an Olympic backlog. All of your hashtag the Keg Saves of the Game $50 gift certificates have been passed along. They will be coming to you soon, so just a little bit of patience. Ken, anything to say before we get going?
No, and keep those hashtags coming if you want to be a winner and maybe you haven't won this year. Keep it going.
Excellent. Yeah, just stay active. Stay active, folks. That's like the Winnipeg Jets did tonight with
Don't be afraid to claim them.
All right, that's it for us, ladies and gentlemen, from a very prosperous weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. If you do appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnston Group, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's get together and do this all over again after the game against Nashville. Bye-bye.